By the look of the chat, I think you're all up for this. Hey guys, welcome to the F1 Word Live and our Sunday debate, and it's going to be a good one. Thank you to Williams for bailing us out on this one just a little bit. It is already a hot topic for debate, and that is the Sergey Sirotkin news. Yes, I had my say on Tuesday. This one will be more balanced. I think we'll put it that way. And there'll be some facts and some stats thrown in there. You all know I love a stat. First off, housekeeping. Follow me on social media, links to Twitter, Facebook, and all that in the description below. And also, come and join us on Discord, because I will be dropping in voice chat after the stream, because I've got a couple of things I need to address, and also some stuff I need feedback on for the future of the channel. So it'd be awesome if you could come along to that and give me your point of view. Yes, so here we go then. The Sunday debate on Tuesday, of course. Williams made their big announcement. I'd say finally, we've been waiting long enough, that Sergey Sirotkin will partner Lance Stroll for 2018 in that Williams. And it's not gone down well with, I would say, would it be unreasonable to say the vast majority of F1 fans, if we're being completely honest? I think it wasn't great news. I was unhappy on Tuesday. If you haven't caught the video on Tuesday, it's kind of like a little thing on the press release and also some initial reactions, but I definitely have a more balanced opinion now-ish, I would say. First off, good evening, Jonty. Is Jonty there? Okay, no, he said to go in 2 minutes. No, it's fine. He'll pop along in just a second. So we're going to kick off then with... That all went very, very well, didn't it? What are your guys' opinions, actually? First off in the chat, before I get into any real stats or anything, were you happy with the news, really disappointed, or not really bothered, if you're being completely honest? Some aren't. Genuinely, some really are not fussed at all about the news, but others are pretty miffed on the whole thing, if we're being honest. So, yeah, a few... Yeah, I'm just looking back through the chat. Sorry, a few of you really unhappy. Some of you defending it. We're going to go into it now and really look at this, like I say, a bit more balanced. First off, as I've said multiple times over the last few weeks and over the last few days as well, Sergey Sirotkin is not a bad driver. I could not walk into Williams with $30 million. I mean, partly because I don't have a super license and also because I don't have $30 million. But if I did, I couldn't just walk in and buy that seat if I'd never driven a car. He has to have some sort of talent. So we can't say he's a bad driver. However, there are others out there, in my opinion, that probably would have been more suited to the seat. And we will go into that. But at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, it's their team. They'll do what they want. And I guess $30 million on the table is $30 million on the table. Hello, Chris Smith. Thank you for joining the team. Great to see you. We'll try and shout out as many as I can, because stream label seems to be playing up at the minute as well. So I'll try and shout you out during the stream. If I don't get to your questions, though, don't forget as well, I will be opening up to Q&A at the end, so you can get your questions in there. But yeah, quite a few in the chat. A little bit disappointed. Some defending him, like I say. It's kind of split the community. I'm going to go straight into stats, though, because I love a stat. I'm going to go with the second test first off, which will just appear on your screen now, and that is Sergey Sirotkin versus Robert Kubica. Half a second between them, and Sergey Sirotkin was on a tyre that was substantially slower than Kubica. Now, we don't know. We really do not know what setups Williams were running. We don't know what they were doing with that car. We have no idea. It may well be that one was heavier than the other. It's all very... As we'll talk about a lot in pre-season testing in the coming weeks, you can't really take too much from testing results because there's sandbagging and all sorts going on. But from what I've read and what I understand, Williams pretty much had them on the same thing. But they can always say that. Thanks for subscribing to Stein Van Dorn. I think I just missed one already, so that's a really good start. And that's... Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay. We'll leave it at that. Thanks for subscribing. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I'm going to bring Jonty in now. How are we doing, Jonty? Have you sorted your problems out, mate?
Yeah, there were no problems. I won't make an excuse. 1 minute before we went to go, I needed the loo. If Kim can get away with it, then so can I.
Yeah. Too much information to go with.
Yeah, but jumping straight in on that one, I did read, I can't remember where I read it. I'm pretty sure it was actually on the Ted Kravitz might have put it somewhere, that all the setups were sort of a standard setup that they were forced to use to get even results from all the tyres, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah, because it was, of course,
There
it was
was
a
no
Pirelli test, wasn't it?
Yes, there was no driver input on the setups and they couldn't be changed. And we all know drivers have a massive impact on how they like the car set up.
Yeah. I mean, like I was saying about testing times, we have to be very, very careful, because if you actually look at the testing times, Sebastian Vettel was substantially quicker than Lewis Hamilton. And although he's a good driver, there's not one of those that is substantially quicker than the other. So we have to be a little bit careful. But on those stats on screen now, the fact of the matter is Sergey Sirotkin's within half a second on a tyre that's, 3 grades harder? So you're looking at, I think Pirelli say that the Hypersoft is a second a lap quicker than the Ultra Soft. So that's at least a second there, plus probably 0.3 to half a second between each of the grades. So, he's quicker than Kubica. And on that stat there, you can't argue against Williams with that. Like I say, we have to be careful, but you can't really argue with it, can you, Jonty?
No, you can't. It is pretty simple on that front. But it would have been nice to see more challenge, maybe have them doing the testing in February, taking it in turns.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I did see on Discord just before we came on, I think it was Chaz that asked if Sirotkin was quicker than Stroll or if Kubica was quicker than Stroll. Allegedly, again, according to Williams, they were running a different program on the first day of testing. But Kubica, with all of that we just applied to Sirotkin, is technically quicker than Stroll. With almost quite literally one arm tied behind his back, or at least on par with him. But like I say, if they're running different setups not setups, but if they're running a different program, fuel loads, things like that for that test between them, I don't know. But to me, looking at the testing times alone, I kind of feel as though the question should have been not Kubica or Sirotkin, but Kubica or Stroll.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And that's again, I'm not knocking Lance Stroll, just on all the information that we've got, Kubica's on a par with Stroll. And that's, again, quite literally. I think I watched Ted's notebook, I think it was, on the Kubica announcement and on the Sirotkin announcement, and he said there that, he effectively has one working arm. So to do that is, to me, quite impressive. And whichever way we look at it, we would have loved the story to have been Kubica gets F1 race seat. But to be where he is now is still an incredible feat. It really is. Yeah,
that can't be denied. I mean, it was a horrific incident. I mean, there's never been any... there was no footage of it, because I believe it occurred while it was rather dark, but just the pictures of the car afterwards, it was wondering how on earth he got out alive. So to get this far is a hell of an achievement, especially to win the WRC2 on the way, which is a requirement for the F1 Super License, I believe.
Yeah, just to answer Poochie Head in the chat, there was a Ted's notebook. It's on the Sky Sports F1 website, I think, at the minute. So if you can watch it, I know not everybody will be able to because it's a territories thing, but it was actually quite an interesting look at it from Ted's, I was going to say unbiased point of view, but he's not the most unbiased. But yeah, I think looking at it first off balanced and objectively with all the information, they've kind of made the right call. However, going back to Tuesday, Jonty, everybody knows my feeling on it from the Tuesday video. When that was announced, what were your initial reactions and your initial thoughts to it all?
My initial thoughts are the same as when the news first broke that they were considering it, is that I can't respect the decision. They are comparable on speed. Let's be diplomatic about it. With the time shown in testing, there's not a lot between them. So for me, it would make sense to take a proven race winner, someone who's got vastly more experience in setting up the car and helping to build the car up as they go through the season, rather than a newbie who's got lots of money.
Yeah, I mean, the paid driver aspect is something we've thrown around a lot on the channel and everywhere else, has to be fair. It's something that comes up quite often. The fact is, whether it's liked by people or not, he is a paid driver. That is a fact. However, in his defence, he has shown he's got the pace and, I guess, the talent, therefore, to back that money up. So he is a paid driver. He has bought that seat, because my argument would be, we'll come on to potential other drivers that could have got that seat in a minute. But my argument to that is, if Pascal Wehrlein had turned up with $30 million, would he have got the seat over Sirotkin, or would Sirotkin have still got the seat? I don't think that's even up for debate. Wehrlein would be in that car in a heartbeat. So he has bought that seat, but with the timings, etc., he's backed that up with his ability.
Yeah. You have to go. You have to say that. It's hard to disagree with it. But the point you were saying about if Wehrlein had turned up with 30 million, yeah, absolutely, he'd have been the one sitting in that seat.
Yeah.
So it does bring the whole thing into question of whether real ability was even considered.
I think as well, it's very easy, as I showed on Tuesday, to go on the attack on Sirotkin and on Williams, but we have to remember as well, at the end of the day, blaming Williams is fine, but if the money was distributed properly through the sport, they wouldn't need two paid drivers, and so this whole debate would be a moot point, wouldn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah, it does circle around back to the problems with the FIA and how the prize money is distributed, which is just still disgusting.
It is. I mean, again, to flip the coin again, Williams get, I think, $10 million a season in a heritage payment. So, I mean, they get money from the FIA, but Ferrari, 70 million. We say it pretty much every week. That could quite easily be spread between the teams, and maybe Williams. I mean, they may still have taken Sirotkin. I mean, if I were running a business, I'd want to bring in as much money as possible, and that's it at the end of the day. But from a racing point of view, there were better drivers. And I think as well, some of us have to maybe let our heads rule our hearts sometimes, because I think a lot of us wanted Kubica to get in, not necessarily for any reason other than the story. I think that is the big selling point to Kubica. I'm not convinced I would put him in that car if I was in the Williams position. Maybe that's going to cause controversy, but I just don't necessarily think I would.
Well, even head over heart, thinking purely money-wise, I would still have gone with him. Because the whole fairy story is a PR dream. All they've got to do is get one good PR agent in on that, and they will be raking in far more money than Sirotkin's bringing in.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I've said it in comments before as well, but I suppose, again, from a business point of view, 30 million on the table guaranteed is better than, well, you could earn this in championship points, or you could earn this in sponsorship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, maybe things on the Williams books are a bit too tight to go with what ifs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I don't know, the other thing as well, I would not be surprised to see Kubica in a race seat by the end of the season. I think it's going to give him time. What he's done in such a short space of time is incredible. We said that at the start. And at the end of the day, if he can get himself up to full fitness, show what he can do, and let's say Stroll or Sirotkin aren't performing, he could take a seat off him quite easily. I think, I'm going to say it, he came in with a financial package himself, didn't he? Potentially, according to reports. But he came in with a financial package with a clause attached to it that said, if I'm not matching my teammate, you can drop me for another driver. As if I were a manager of a team and somebody came to me with that self-doubt instantly, that would set alarm bells ringing. And that says to me that even Kubica wasn't 100% sure.
I think by that point it was a last-ditch effort to get in.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah.
And I think at that time, I'm pretty sure the amount being offered by Sirotkin was it 12 or 15 million? It's actually gone up to 30. And the package that Kubica came with was $1 million a race for 7 races.
Yeah.
So it's not a massive difference. Maybe you'd have been thinking, well, get the best of both worlds. Take the 7 off him. If it's not working, get the other stuff. Or maybe do that anyway if you... what's the word? not snide, but
Clever.
yeah,
Business savvy.
yeah, savvy enough.
Yeah.
You know, you can still drop him and get all of the money.
I mean,
That's
that's
a
it.
win-win
And
for Williams.
if you're talking solely business, that makes perfect sense, and that's the route to go down. But before we come on to other drivers that could have filled that seat, are we now looking at a situation where we basically know the Williams lineup for the next, for the foreseeable future? Because Sirotkin will keep bringing the money from Russia, Lance Stroll will keep bringing the money. If it's about the cash, is this the Williams lineup now till at least 2021?
I think that lies in the hands of what happens to the Russian race.
True, yeah.
We've seen it before. Valencia, a couple of boring races, away it went.
Yeah, absolutely. And
based on last year,
yeah,
Russia's got a lot of stepping up to do. I mean, it's not their fault, essentially. You know, the track layout's actually not that bad. It's just too narrow to allow for the racing.
Well, actually, funnily enough, on the game, it's actually, I think Alex said the other week, didn't it? It's actually not a bad track to drive, but which isn't really what we should base life on. But at the end of the day, you know, it's not a bad track. I think the biggest problem with the Russian Grand Prix, as we kind of wander a little bit off, but I think the biggest issue with that is they built a track but designed it almost as a street circuit. And street circuits don't work for excitement and overtaking as it is. So to design an actual racetrack to be a street circuit is just a recipe for disaster. What's that stat you told me a few weeks ago? Fewer overtakes in the 2005 race at Indy, where 6 cars started?
Yeah.
What's that about?
Seriously? Fewer on-track overtakes with a full grid compared to 6 cars. It does tell you everything. But it does tie in, because if the race doesn't perform, there's a big chance it could get dropped. And then all that Russian sponsorship money will be worthless.
Yeah. But yeah, I think assuming that would stay on the calendar, I think Williams will probably stick with his lineup for quite a while. There were other drivers we've touched on. One of them, I'm going to jump straight in there. This is a guy I just cannot believe is not on the grid next year. Somebody actually in the comments, I was just reading on the chat there, has just said, I can't find it, something on the lines of the problem for Wehrlein is that Ocon is quicker than him. Completely true. But in terms of what he's achieved, and you look at some of the drivers that have been given their shots in a higher up team, I still think it's a disgrace that Wehrlein isn't on the grid this year.
Totally agree. In a perfect last-ditch world, he would K-Mag would get dropped, and he would take that seat. But I think Wehrlein's very closely tied in with Mercedes, so that limits the possibilities.
It's like I was saying, if he turns up with the same money as Sirotkin, there's no doubt in my mind Williams will take him in a heartbeat. I mean, did Mercedes, there was talk that they were trying to get a package together for Williams to take him. Do you think they tried hard enough? Because let's face it, the money's not really an issue for Mercedes as such. I mean, they're not as well off as, say, Ferrari. But did they try hard enough to get him in that seat? Or did they know that there was just no way they could match what Sirotkin's backers were bringing?
I'm not sure on that one. Because that could also bring into question the fact the engine supply for Williams. Maybe they've come forward with a package, but it's not been financially viable to go along with Williams keeping the Mercedes engines.
Yeah. Yes. A few in chat, as gutted as we are that Wehrlein isn't on the grid this year. It does baffle me. You look at his performances with Manor. He scored points. He outperformed that car. He outperformed his teammate. His performances in Sauber, exactly the same. Legitimately 7th, 8th after a penalty in Spain in 2017. Fantastic drive. He gets pushed aside for Marcus Ericsson at Sauber. I mean, I'm going to say that because I think Leclerc was having that seat, whatever. Like you say, K-Mag at Haas, again, the ties with Ferrari and Mercedes might have made that difficult, but perhaps that was an option for him. But I just think that Williams seat would have been perfect. But then, I mean, I'm not going to write him off completely from F1, because if Ocon, as I predict he will, ends up at Mercedes in 2019, there's a seat then at Force India for him. So maybe it's a year out and then comes back, but we don't often see that, do we?
No, I mean, how often have we seen a driver go and then come back with any degree of permanence? What, Kimi that's about it.
Yeah. Even Michael Schumacher. I mean, he did a comeback, but he wasn't spectacular. But we look at names like Buemi, Al Jaswari, Jean-Eric Verne, drivers who have disappeared, who are good enough to be in the sport,
And never came back.
So that may have been 2017, the last time we see Pascal Wehrlein in Formula One. But that's kind of gutting, because I think he's more than good enough. I'll do a few shout outs on subscribers in just a second. Next up on my list, and it's not for the reasons some people might say, but Ollie Rowland. He was linked with that seat quite heavily. There was talk of him getting, or in negotiations, to take the test driver role, and he is another driver who last season was good enough to go toe to toe and be on pace with Leclerc at times, probably the only driver good enough to, and he's without a seat in F1. It's another one that not baffles me because he's not had that shot in F1 yet, but it's frustrating. I just find it very frustrating.
Yeah, but I think it's fairly certain he'll be there in 2019. As good as all of the people coming to F2 are, they're still just a fraction behind Rowland, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I think he was very... I mean, he finished third with some unlucky moments towards the end of the season, but particularly Monza, where he lost his wheel, of course, after a dodgy pit stop. But I kind of feel like when I watched that season back, although Leclerc was pretty dominant, he was about the only driver that could match him for lap time at times during the season. So, I don't know, I felt maybe he's not ready yet. Maybe that's what Williams saw, but I kind of feel... I don't know, maybe it is maybe it is a little bit of British bias. Maybe it is, because we've only got one on the grid. But I think out of the options, I think had Rowland and Sirotkin been the choice, I probably would have pushed for Rowland. Again, possibly alone on that, but...
No, again, there's several drivers in F2 that I would prefer over Sirotkin. There really is.
Zach Mullins just said one, and I know you all agree with this. Markelov. Just one word.
Yeah, Markelov is a much more consistent, faster driver than Sirotkin. Yes, he's still got a hot head, the same as Sirotkin. Some of the incidents they've pulled were a little bit crazy at times, but he's very, very quick on his day.
Yeah. Tony the guitarist, Nick DeFries is coming. He's another one who's got serious potential. Jonathan Davis, on your question there on Billy Munger, save that for towards the end if you're still around, mate, and I'll try and answer that in Q&A, because I would like to say something on Billy Munger at some point today, actually. So the thing is, though, you look at F2 and GP2, or whatever you want to call it, whatever it's called this week, and you look at some of the drivers that have come out of that, you go, wow, impressive. But then you look at some of the champions, I don't know, say Jolyon Palmer, that have come out of there, and it's not all that, is it, F2? It's not always going to... Just because you've won that title doesn't mean you deserve a seat in F1 as such. I guess what I'm trying to say is it kind of depends who you come up against. Leclerc got his seat this year because of the sheer amount of talent there is in F2 at the minute, and he managed to blow them all away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's, like you say, there's past champions from F2 where there hasn't been as much competition on the grid. Certainly when Palmer won his, at the start of that year, a lot of the names went out of it. Mitch Evans, for example, he was always a nearly man in F2, but that year he kind of faded away a bit and went towards Formula E.
Yeah, I was to say Mitch Evans is one that I was looking at earlier, compared to, he was racing against Sirotkin, etc. as well, but he kind of was one of the next big stars and disappeared. Another one, I've just popped him on screen, you can probably see it, going to upset somebody, I'm sure, Daniel Kvyat. Would you have taken Kvyat over Sirotkin, honestly?
No. Purely because of his mindset. I think getting the development role at Ferrari is the best thing that could have happened to him. It'll be somewhere he can focus on everything about F1 apart from the actual racing and get all of his head back in the game. And he will come back into a seat 2019, maybe 2020, and he will be fast.
Yeah, it's just a chance for him to hit that reset button, isn't it, and get his mind together. Because I know some agree and some think maybe it's woe is me about him. But I think he got too much of a kicking from Red Bull to be in a race seat in 2018. I think he's really been hit quite hard. Now, I said it last week, or not last week, week before, that you look at his comeback, if you like, in 2017. He got dropped. Gasly had to go to Super Formula to finish off there. Kvyat comes back, scores a point. Scores a point in his one and only return. And, Hartley and Gasly, okay, haven't had the experience and the practice, if you like, that he's had. But he scored a point, and they hadn't all season when they were in the car for the rest of the season. So the last point of the year for Toro Rosso came from Daniel Kvyat. So I don't think it's fair that he got dropped the way he could have seen the season out quite easily, is the point I'm kind of making. But I actually look at it and look at the way Williams are going, and maybe, again, I'm alone here. I kind of think he's ended up with a better deal out of this.
Oh, yeah, he has. He's definitely fell on his feet. Yeah, big Nintendo fan, don't joke. He will be in line for Kimi's seat now.
If he nails it in his development role, he's got to be an option. If you look at, Leclerc, we talk about him, we want him in that seat yesterday, quite frankly, don't we? But at the end of the day, if he's not ready in 2019 and the options are Kimi, Kvyat, and possibly Grosjean, you're not telling me Daniel Kvyat isn't better than Grosjean, and maybe I'm wrong. I know Chaz will probably want to murder me for that line, but, I think Kimi Räikkönen, the way he's been, if he doesn't improve and he continues to do what he did in 2017, why not give Kvyat a shot? He'd play number 2 to Vettel quite happily, I'm sure he would. And, they've both come from the same place, haven't they? The Red Bull setup. So 2019, he's got to be in the frame for that. And I guess I kind of need to say that because that news was announced whilst I was away. So I didn't get a chance to do a video on it. But yeah, I think he's ended up with a pretty sweet deal out of it, to be honest.
Yeah, he really has come out of it smiling. Like I said, it's just he can get his head straight again. That's what his speed's never been in question. It's his conduct and the way he carries himself. And that one mistake, which he was harshly punished for, I will agree, he just couldn't cope with it.
Yeah.
And you could see that. This is what he needs.
It'll be good for him, like I say, a chance to hit the reset button. Actually, hopefully I'll get his name right this week. Niels has actually made a fair point. If Vettel doesn't win the World Drivers' Championship in the next 2 years, he will be replaced. I'm not saying he will be replaced. I won't necessarily say that. But Ferrari want their drivers to be delivering titles. And if he's not doing it, maybe Leclerc and Kvyat? Maybe?
I could see Ferrari doing that. It's quite clear the reason Vettel's in that car is because they want a driver's title.
Yeah.
They've provided the machinery. Within a couple of tenths, he should be good enough to pull it off. And certainly in 2017, his behaviour didn't help. Put it that way.
Nice. Ferrari have an image they like to maintain, don't they? And he didn't really stick within that. But, according to Ferrari and others, he's... I'm trying not to be too sarcastic.
No, I think he did actually fit. No, I think he did. I think that did actually fit with Ferrari, to be quite honest. The hot-headed Italian feeling. The Ferrari as a team have done it in the past. I don't know if anyone's watched this week's Grand Tour, but the whole story with Lancia and Audi in the rally, it's very Italian in as far as racing attitudes go. So it could kind of fit. Yeah.
I'm just going to do some shout outs for those that have subscribed up to this point. So everybody in chat, one word only, who would you have put, I'm going to regret this, in that Williams seat? And I will see if there's any in there that surprised me. So get them in there while I just do some shout outs. Thank you to Ariel Capybara. If I butcher these, I'm sorry. Thanks to Kush, Nigel, Moin Dog? I'm not down with the kids. Robin, Jonathan Davis, Jeremy Pope, and Said Head 2 for your subscriptions. I will try and keep up with them, but don't worry, we'll give everyone a shout out at the end of the stream. Guaranteed this week. I will try and remember to. Just remind me to, Jonty, because I've got a habit of forgetting. Just looking at Maldonado, no. Verline, Stroll, Verline, Boris Johnson, Kubica, Verline, Maldonado, Palmer, Kubica, Massa. see, there's still a part of me that thinks he was forced out the door. So that's maybe just me.
Yeah, you get that feeling.
Yeah.
Sam Bird, good shout.
Yes, Jenson Button.
I'd have loved to have seen that.
Yeah, back at Williams where he started. Paul Di Resta, he's somebody that I keep forgetting about. I think if you want consistent points and consistent performance, Paul Di Resta's a shot. George Russell is another one. Yeah, I'd have given him a chance in that car. Heikki Kovalainen. Lando Norris. I can't give an opinion on Lando Norris because I'm too biased on him. So,
yeah, there's a bit of a man crush there. But he is good.
He is good. He's very good. Mick Schumacher.
He's too far away yet.
Sebastian Buemi. I think I said Jev is another one I keep mentioning as well. Carlos Sainz. I think he's better off at Renault, to be honest. Just keeping Aitken. He's a bloody good driver as well, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he needs
part of the Renault Young Driver Program, is he?
Yes.
I think it's Renault, yes. So he's in a good place, and they're looking to build that. A couple saying Julian Palmer. No. Antonio Fuoco. I got some stick in the comments for my opinions on him in the Williams video on Tuesday. I think he's a better driver than people make him out to be. I think he's got a lot of potential.
He's very, very fast, but a bit too sporadic.
Yeah.
Some races,
Roland.
5 seconds out in the lead. Other races is at the back. I don't get it.
Giovinazzi. I think the Ferrari tyres would rule him out of that one, though, to be fair, wouldn't it? Stick says Shrek.
Rosenquist.
Yep. Oliver Newgarden.
Maybe.
Yeah. Dan Ticktum. I think he needs a bit longer to develop as well, to be honest. Bruno Senna. I think he's had his time, hasn't he?
He could never live up to the hype.
No. It's a little. I think that's what's coming for Mick Schumacher as well. I think he's got too big a name to live up to. Nico Rosberg. Says Howard.
I'm happy with him not on the grid.
Yeah, but if they could have got a deal done, I mean, I think to be fair, he's pretty much done now. He's quite happy with his family, but he said, if certain tracks turn up, South Africa was one, I think, he'd be quite happy to go racing again. So, Timo Glock.
Is he still racing?
I don't know.
It's over in the US, I think.
Yeah. Carter Cahan. Hulkenberg, I think, again, he's better off at Renault.
Yeah, definitely.
Will the Lad Stevens. It brings money. Yeah, I think, I'm just watching the name scroll now. There's quite a few still coming, so see if there's any bit surprises me there. But
one of them's popped up. If they were able to have different drivers for racing qualifying, then you definitely take Trulli for qualifying.
Absolutely.
He's like the greatest one-lap specialist there's ever been.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We'll jump back onto point then, and that's Sergey Sirotkin.
So it's Sophia Flörsch that's being put up quite a few. She's very quick. And I know it's a totally different topic, but we need more of that.
We do. Daniel Abt. He does all right in Formula E, but I don't think he'd be in for F1. But yeah, Sergey Sirotkin, ultimately then, was he the right choice for Williams, everything considered, or is that a big mistake?
Only the races can tell us that, unfortunately. Personally, I think I'm a bit biased towards Kubica because I was always a fan of his back when he was in it. I've always been a fan of the underdogs, especially when they go on and win.
I think, like I say, the story behind him was just perfect, wasn't it? I think we all kind of wanted him to, even those that maybe aren't a big fan. It would have been great for F1 and a great story. But I look at those testing times, and like I said at the start, I look at the testing times, I look at what he's done in his career, and I can't help but feel the discussion should have been, or the decision should have been between Stroll and Kubica. I think Sirotkin showed he was quick enough to have that seat. Yes, he brings the money, and that's effectively what's got him in that seat. But if he can back that up with talent, I can't really argue against him getting that position. But like you say, we could get to Australia and they could take each other out, and Williams is going to look very, very stupid. Or we could, who knows, end up with two Williamses on the podium. I mean, it's never going to happen, but we don't know, do we?
Well, let's just see what they do with that chassis.
Hopefully Paddy Lowe's influence will bring a little bit of good stuff to that car, because he's got some Mercedes knowledge and he's a good engineer, but I think the jury's out on that one just yet.
Yeah, Paddy's going to bring quite a bit, I think.
Yeah. So dropping Sirotkin for a second, Lance Stroll, we have criticised him quite heavily on the channel. I think we could be open about that. I think there was a point made, and I get the impression it's a dangerous world where we say that Andrew Kirk is right, but I do get the impression from what he said, I think it was him that said it, that we just have to remember he's 18. It's his first season in F1. We've seen some drivers have much worse first seasons in F1. Do we need to lay off him a little bit and just sort of judge him on this next season rather than his debut season?
Usually I would say yes, but the only real comparison you can have is to the teammate. And if you remove the fluke podium, Massa outperformed him dramatically. See, people going about the points, there was only a couple of points difference between them. But when you take out that podium, there's, 16 points, 15 points? Suddenly it's a big gap.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not changing my opinion on his first season. I'm just sort of looking at the other side of the argument and sort of saying, he might surprise us all this year. And yeah, he was nothing compared to Massa, but that's Felipe Massa with 15 years experience and very nearly a world title. And that's kind of my argument for Stroll a little bit. It's just, I can't, if Sirotkin brings $30 million, Williams are losing nothing by having him in that car. He might stun us all in 2018. I mean, I don't know. Again, like we were saying about Sirotkin, we won't know until we get into the season, but he could surprise everybody.
Yeah, he could. And it'd be great for him if he did. But, I mean, you have to compare to other recent first years. I know he's always the one people go to, but Max's first year, I can remember one big mistake at Monaco when he decided to mount Grosjean's car. But the rest of it, he was quick. He was constantly on par or outperforming his teammate. You've got Ocon. He had half a year. And then in his first full season, he's been toe-to-toe with his teammate and outperforming him on a fair few occasions. We saw that twice with Stroll. One of those was qualifying.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. There is a little bit of me that probably shouldn't be, but is rooting for both of them next year. I want both of them to prove us all wrong. I really do. I know you probably think the same. It'd be great if they did, but you have to look at all the information given to us. 2017 wasn't good enough for Stroll. I don't think he was good enough, but I can't help when I look at everything. I've watched a lot of races back from 2017 over the last week or so. And although my opinion's not changing per se, I kind of look back, and I'm just going to get ready for a few people who are crazy at me now. I don't think he was as bad as I remember him being.
Yeah, possibly. And I think you're right. He does need another year, just to be fair to him, to give him a fair crack of the whip, like Palmer got and did nothing with.
Yeah.
I'll definitely. If he's dramatically improved this year, improves in 2018, then fair enough. Fair play to him. But this I think this is a crunch year for quite a few people, Stroll particularly.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think it's a crunch year for him. I think it's a crunch year, like you say, for quite a few, some quite a bit more experienced than him. So I think, not going to get into listing them, but I think people know pretty much where we're going down that road. We've said it 100 times on the channel. But is there a little bit of you rooting for them both next year? Would love to prove us all wrong.
Yes, but I think that's just a little bias because I was historically a big Williams fan.
Yeah.
And it's Williams I want to see coming back up to the front.
I think that's I don't know if that's an F1 thing. Maybe if you're not from the UK, just say in the chat if you have that little soft spot for Williams. It may be a British thing, but I think even I've got a soft spot for him, and I don't have a soft spot for many things in life, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I just, we want to see Williams do well, but ultimately, and maybe we struggle to accept it a little bit, they're not the same monster they were, are they? They're not the same Williams that they were late 80s and into the 90s.
Oh no, absolutely not. I think we mentioned this before. It's because personally, I think you've got the biggest change is who's at the helm, and now it's more of a business person than someone who was just in it for the racing. And it's a clear difference that you can see it in their performance.
Just have a look at the chat. A lot of people saying McLaren all the way for them. Some saying it is definitely a British thing. Maybe it is. And yeah, having a look at it. Is there anything you got to add on the Williams thing before we jump into our interactive Q&A?
No, but there's been no announcement about the whole Martini thing, so I'll be interested to find out what's happened there with the 25-year-old clause.
Well, actually, I think on Ted's notebook, I'll see if I can find a link to it and pop it on Discord for those that can watch it, but on his notebook, apparently it's turned out, or his, the infamous Sky sources, we all know them so well, they're currently busy with Alexis Sanchez, but the whole Sky sources thing, apparently the deal was never that they had to have a driver over 25. It was that Martini would prefer them to, but it was never like a clause that they had to. It was never forced on Williams. Whether that's something that has just conveniently been released around the same time they've not taken on a 25-year-old, which I'm not saying that Formula 1 does that, but Formula 1 does do that a lot.
So it's more what you call guidelines than actual rules.
Yeah. But obviously, with Kubica, they're kind of covered with that anyway. And if you think of the time he's going to have spare, he's going to have that time to be able to promote Martini a little bit as well, isn't he? So maybe even Martini have got best of both worlds in some respects. But
in fact, now you mention it, with him getting the testing reserve role, maybe that has been played quite cleverly by Williams, so they do get some of the PR dream of his big comeback, just not all of it.
Sorry, Games Donovan's just made me laugh. The only person I know who still drinks martinis is 78 years old, so I don't know if the 25-year-old limit makes any sense.
I quite like him.
Yeah, but
that doesn't help, does it?
No. No, people already think we're old, Jonty. We'll stop on that one. I'm going to open up now to Q&A, but I just need to nip off for a couple of quick minutes. And by a couple of minutes, by the way, don't worry, I'm not going for long. I am literally talking all of about a minute and 57 seconds. So I will be back. Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. So, have my opinions on the Halo changed? Well, aesthetically, no. I still think it's absolutely hideous and it just doesn't look as though it has any place on a Formula 1 car. However, as I've said in this video a couple of times, safety is absolutely paramount. iRacing, you've made the switch over to Twitch. I love saying that, I'm sorry. I will stop saying that.
A video platform, we'll say that. It makes it more easier.
Yeah, it definitely does. You're enjoying it though, aren't you, mate? You can tell in your streaming, you're just having so much more fun with it. It's a rumour that's been flying around for a while now, ever since Sauber announced that they'd be using the Ferrari 2018 engine next season. Everybody's been expecting Alpha to be part of that in some way, and it has now been officially confirmed by all parties. Max Verstappen then, he took his third career win in Mexico with an absolute cruise. A peach of a drive. Dominant. It's the only word. Absolutely dominant. He took the lead in turn 2. He absolutely disappeared. So what they've decided to do is just continue digging and making things worse. Just stop it, FIA. Just stop right where you are and stop being so ridiculous. You do sort of look at them like, back away from the rule book. Just leave it alone. It's a mess. Just do not make it any worse. Charles.
Hello.
Hello. 2 more in general chat. Jonah, do you have a favourite flavour of yoghurt? I'm going to risk chaos now.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to drop 2 more in. We've got Luke and we've got Tom. Very quickly, guys, before I go to Q&A. Favourite flavour of yoghurt?
Can you mix something in the yogurts? For example, drinks.
With what? Yes, we are back with a new overlay for our little interactive section. Pump your questions into that comment section or into the chat. We will answer as many as we can over the next, I would say 15, 20 minutes, but it usually ends up being 40, 45 minutes, doesn't it, Jonty? We're not very good at timekeeping when we get to Q&A because we usually get some absolute crackers. So
Yeah.
start pumping them in there. Just going to keep an eye out for any that come up. So yeah, also, I'll tell you what I'll do while the questions are coming through. Have we had any more subscribers? Yeah, just a thank you again to Julian for your latest subscription as well. We are well on the road to 10k. I can't believe I'm saying that 7 months after the channel got kicking, but to be this close to 10k is absolutely awesome. So let's see if we can get there as soon as we can. I'm going to start with it because I said I would. Jonathan Davis, what are your opinions on British F4 driver Billy Munger and his dream to be an F1 driver? I went to Autosport International, as I may have mentioned once or twice the other weekend, and I saw him in person, and watching him and his attitude is incredible, and he is an absolute inspiration to all of us. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I know somebody that called in sick for work with a broken nail. So for him to have gone through what he's gone through, to get out of hospital, to go through his recovery, to still be smiling and still want to go racing is absolutely incredible. And we could all just take a leaf out of his book. And that's not because he's British. He could be any nationality. He's an absolute inspiration. Do I think he'll make it to F1? I think with the determination he's got, we can't say no. I think he's got so much determination and so much drive. There's no doubt in my mind that, especially with the way technology is advancing in Formula One, he could do it. He could absolutely do it.
Yeah, very much so. I think it's something that a team like Red Bull would jump on quite quickly. In the world of extreme sports, they are always straight there behind disabled people, or sorry, less abled people, and backing them just because of the inspiration it gives to people.
Yeah.
And I think it would be an amazing thing to get him in to Formula One, even as a test driver.
I mean, one thing I will say, Robert Kubica, we've been talking about him a decade ago, as early as a decade ago. He probably couldn't have got back in an F1 car. So look at where we've come in that time, and Billy Munger's still young. It's very much doable. I think I'm about to get a donation from ST. STBJF1 has donated, guess how much? £1 giggity 69. Your monthly ad rev and thanks money for sponsoring Boris Johnson F1 team and the Martini yogurts. Shut up. Akko wants to know, will Kimi up his game in 2018? You can have that one, Jonty.
He's got to. He has no choice. If he doesn't, he's getting the boot. I mean, it hasn't been said in such strict terms, but Ferrari have said he needs to improve. They haven't said they'll boot him, but you can draw those conclusions.
He's under pressure, isn't he? Jug Mythic says, and I've had this a few times in comments actually on videos, do you think Renault will be the best anytime soon? I think they've got a long way to come, and I think the earliest they're going to be title contenders as a works team will be 2021. That's my view on that.
Yeah, unless they pull out something special. And it would pretty much have to be next year, because I can't see anything major changing until 2021. Then that is going to be the earliest.
What do you think about female drivers in F1? Asked Tony, the guitarist. There aren't enough. Well, there aren't any, but there should be more.
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been
women
one
as a presence, not just drivers, just women in F1.
Yeah. have to agree with that overall. We have a few in the pit lane who are very influential, but there is only a few. All of the others are pretty much behind the scenes, but we definitely need someone in the cars.
Yeah, we do. I think part of it that frustrates me as well is there are quite a few behind the scenes, but don't get the airtime. So they're there, but so I think it's a media issue as well. If you want an up-and-coming young female driver to keep an eye on, Jamie Chadwick. That's all I'm going to say. Just keep an eye, because she's going to be something very special. Your favourite driver, Jonty, currently on the grid?
Currently on the grid, Ocon.
Yeah. I would say personality. This is from Honey Badger, ironically. Personality, Ricardo. In terms of just pure talent, I would have to say, as an all-round driver, Alonso. And by the way, it's a very different opinion from a decade ago. I can guarantee you that. I could not stand him a decade ago. I think this last 3 years have been bad for his career, but have been good for him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Well, again, a slight British bias. It was the whole pit stop thing at McLaren that made us hate him quite a lot.
I was a big Schumacher fan as well, and he was kind of the young pretender coming to take that crown, so I think that's what part of that was. Owen asks, which drivers do you think are over or underrated? Boad. I'm sorry. Underrated. I think Bottas a little bit. I think he's got a pretty big teammate to live up to.
I was going to say overrated for the same person.
Well, yeah. That's why I love these streams.
Yeah, obviously he's good, but there are better people they could have had.
I think Grosjean's a little bit underrated. I didn't mean he's got quite a high pitch there, but I do think Grosjean's a little underrated.
I think a lot of people still hold Spa 2012 against him.
Yeah. Corey asked, do you think Mick Schumacher will ever get into F1? We kind of said it earlier. I think the name he's got to live up to is going to be a problem for him, unfortunately. It was the same with Bruno Senna. He could. He's got the potential to do it. He just needs to... The problem he's got is a problem that a number of drivers, particularly in F2, have got, is there's a lot of young talent that I would put above them and that are quicker. And I think he's one of those. But he's quick. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a very, very mature head to cope with the pressure.
Findlay D30 says, if the shark fin was banned because essentially it wasn't that good looking, why haven't the horrendous thumb noses been banned yet? Fair point.
Yeah.
But there is, they had a meeting, a strategy group meeting, didn't they? It came up on Discord just before we came on. I'm glad it reminded me. They have met to discuss extra advertising space on the cars from 2019, and that includes the potential return of the shark fin. So as ever, the FIA and the strategy group just don't really know and can't tell their arse from their elbow, quite frankly, because they're banning it one year and then they're thinking of bringing it back the next within months of banning it. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, they're 3 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Yeah.
And just stay exactly where they are.
I kind of feel as well, I said it in Discord to a couple, I kind of think they need to make the sport more attractive to sponsors before they start allocating that space for them. I think that's something they need to be working on first.
Yeah.
Who will be the next new F1 team? Asked Fraser Peak. I would... maybe not. Maserati possibly, but I've got a feeling they're going to be more likely to deal with somebody like Haas in title sponsors, but probably Porsche?
It's probably going to be Porsche or Audi, I think.
Yeah. Porsche kind of cover themselves quite nicely there, don't they, with VW and whatnot, so... is Porsche owned by... I'm right there, aren't I? VW and Porsche? I might be wrong.
Audi's certainly part of the VW group. But I wasn't actually thinking of that Volkswagen themselves would get involved just because they're still busy dealing with the fallout from Dieselgate.
Yeah.
Which is why Toyota had to pull out because of all the recalls they had in America.
Joe Gallagher said his subscription didn't come out. I'll give you a shout out for that now, mate. Thank you for your subscription, Joe. I will go through. I think is it Streamlabs playing up again? Using new software, you can probably guess which one it is, and it's a little bit buggy still, so just gonna have to bear with me with it a little bit this week, but hopefully they'll get those sorted soon. Danny asks, will Leclerc fail to impress? John T.
No.
Nah, I think
eyes will be wide open in Q1 in Australia.
he's going to blow Ericsson out the water, whatever, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's going to surprise people. Right, like everyone knows he's fast, but I think he's going to go faster than people realise.
One that often comes up is from Akko again. What do you think of the French Grand Prix, Jonty? You are massively looking forward to that next year, aren't you?
Yeah, it's going to be great. It really is.
It looks like a good track. As long as the runoff doesn't play too much of a part in that and we start debating flipping track limits again. We just don't need that, do we?
As long as the track limits are kept in check, it's going to be great because there's no hairpins and no 90s. They're all flowing corners.
It does look good. It does. I mean, it looks a mess from the air. We keep saying that, but it does look good. I just saw predictions for Toro Rosso. Asked Jordan SFP. I still think I'm going to subscribe to myself now. See if that works. I still think we're going to get a surprise. I don't think they're not going to blow us away. They're not going to be a top 4 team or anything stupid like that. But I don't think they're going to be as bad as we're expecting them to be.
No.
And again, that may just be me, but it's just an impression I get. You know, if Honda get it right, which they've got to eventually. There's only so many things you can get wrong before you start getting things right. I don't expect much from them early season, but I think by the time we get to mid-season, I think we'll get a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, they could surprise. Again, it depends on how much extra time Adrian Newey puts in at the other factory.
Just having for a question. Would you like to see Aston Bull? What am I about? Istanbul return? Asks Owen. Yeah, 100%. Great track.
Yeah,
great track.
Really. Yep, can't disagree with that. Turn 12.
I think we probably do this every week, but I mean, what other tracks would you desperately like to see back? And is there any you get rid of apart from Abu Dhabi and the obvious?
Getting rid. I'm very controversial on this one because I'd get rid of Monaco.
It doesn't money, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But Imola should be back. Zandvoort, Kyle Army.
A lot of people agree with me on that one. Imola,
Kyle Army in particular. I know you love Imola.
I do. I've got a real. I don't know.
And there's Watkins Glen, Road Atlanta. Someone did put up a question about a second race for the US. Yes, but not a street circuit. They've got far too many tracks that are brilliant that don't get used.
I think the problem is if we get a second race in the US, it's going to be somewhere like New York, for example, isn't it? It's going to be around a track. It's going to be around a street circuit, which it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
It just doesn't work. They're great backdrops. Singapore is stunning. Monaco is beautiful, but I when I'm watching a race for 2 hours, frankly, I couldn't give a toss what the backdrop looks like. I'm not watching that fancy little Ferris wheel and their amazing hotels. I'm watching what's going on track. So I don't care about the backdrop. It's
yeah. I mean, other people saying there's just been so many that people have just put up. Donington, Road America,
India is another one that's popping up a bit.
Yeah, I'd love to see that back. It really was.
Vietnam's been spoken about recently is another one that's popping up. So James Donovan, I couldn't agree more with that. Monaco
Yeah.
reminds me of Fenway Park in American baseball. It sucks, it is outdated, but too many people love it. It will never go away. Spot on. You couldn't have put that any better. What happened to that guy who worked at the FIA and moved to Renault? I think he's at Renault now, isn't he? But I think there was a vote happened in the last day or two where they've basically decided that any FIA employee that goes to a team does not have to go on gardening leave.
Correct.
So
There'll be a lot of crying about that. There's going to be a lot of arms in the air about that when we get to Australia.
We're going to get a lot of content out of that one, aren't we? Let's be honest.
Again, if Renault magically pull out second, third row, there's going to be a lot of arguments.
Yeah, there is. RC wants to know what the opinion is on Susie Wolff for the Williams seat. Is she still racing, Susie Wolff?
No, I think she took a bit of a step back after her having a baby. Which is fair enough.
Was it last year? No, it was when Bottas had to have the time off with his back after he went over that curb a bit rough in Australia. Susie Wolff was overlooked despite being a reserve driver for somebody else. And I can't remember who it was now. She should have been in the Australian Grand Prix then.
De La Rosa, wasn't it? Or am I thinking of another year? No, I'm going too far back there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think who it was and I can't remember.
What year did you say?
It was Bottas's last year with Williams, Australian Grand Prix. Gone over that last corner curb quite a bit. Oh, yeah. And he took time. They had to take a race or two off, didn't he? And Susie was overlooked. Despite being reserve driver, and Subby fan just said there, Susie 2 seconds slower than the worst male drivers. That's possibly why. No, you're right, Poochie Head. No one replaced Bottas. They just didn't have a second car. You're right. Sorry about that. Spot on. Thank you.
Yeah,
saved me out of a whole night of worrying. Predictions for Stoffel Van Dorn in 2018. That's from Howard. He's another one that has got to step up. I know they had a terrible car. Well, no, they had a good car, terrible engine, but Fernando Alonso also had a good car and a terrible engine and pretty much blew him out of the water. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's all on him now. I think this is a good thing. All these drivers that have got 1 year to really make a difference, I think the beauty is it's really on them now that the Honda thing's been dealt with.
Yeah. Yeah, and we said it a few weeks ago, there's literally nowhere to hide for McLaren now, is there? They can't blame anything on Honda because they've got the same engine as Red Bull, so they've got to be up there if their chassis is as good as they make out.
Yep.
Oh, that's good. It's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting. Just saw one. It's gone away now, and I can't find it. Yeah, Copenhagen, that's another circuit that's been talked about a lot as possibly... but it's another street circuit. I don't want another street circuit.
Yeah, if we're going to have another race in Europe, like I said, Zandvoort, Zolder, Nürburgring, even Manicourt, Donington, the other one in Italy. Help.
I can't remember.
Mugello.
Yes.
Or is that in Spain?
No, Mugello's in Spain.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. Anthony Harvey, will we ever see full active aero in F1? No.
A few years ago I'd have said no, but then DRS happened.
Oh yeah, true. They're just limiting what teams can do too much, and that sort of thing just opens up too much innovation, and the FIA aren't keen on that at the minute, are they? So, yeah. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I'd like the rules to be opened up a lot more, and teams be able to kind of stick bits on the car where they want and try and bring back those. You know, they were terrible, but we want to see the innovations like the six-wheel F1 cars and the fan cars and the stupid little winglets here, there, and everywhere. Even if they get banned, we still want to see them because that's what F1's about: innovation. And Yeah. Do you think they'll be able to put aero on the Halo at all? Imagine a T-wing on the Halo. Oh God, no. I think they can, can't they? They've got. I didn't look at it again before we came on. There is restrictions, but they've got some freedom to develop around the Halo.
Yeah, there are some areas. Well, I need to try and find when they're given the restrictions, they always draw up like a simple 3D model showing where they're allowed to put stuff, and then work to that. And I found one last year. I haven't found one yet. I'll keep looking.
Yeah, we were watching because it was put on the F1 website, wasn't it, just before we came on, not last week before, about all the changes and what they could do. And there is an image somewhere online, which I'll try and find. Again, if you're on Discord, I'll pop it in there if I can find it. There's also a video on the F1 website that kind of explains what they can do. But this is why the T-Wing got banned, wasn't it? Because they've had to close off that area of development because they'd accidentally effectively left that open. So shark fin Halo, says Jordan. I hope you don't mean the shark fin attached to the Halo. Oh, God, no. I Am the Chosen One asks, do you think systems like Fan Boost would work in Formula One?
Absolutely not. It is the biggest thing I hate about Formula E.
I'd agree with that. I mean, don't get me wrong, it'll work, but it'll be absolutely terrible. We've already got these curves that they're possibly going to put on in 2021, driver deployment. We've got DRS. We've got deliberately degrading tyre. Oh, it's too artificial. It's too artificial. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Fan Boost. I get why they do it. It's to get people engaged and things, but it's not for me. Gods asks, for the German Grand Prix, would you rather have Hockenheim, Nürburgring, the full Nordschleife, or even, I'm not even going to try and read that because I'll get it completely wrong, the Sachsenheisring? I went for it. It's something like that, but yeah. The Nordschleife will be epic, but it'll never happen. I would rather have the Nürburgring than Hockenheim.
In descending order, Nürburgring, full Hockenheim, and then nothing else.
Oh, the original Hockenheim. Yeah, we'll have that.
I hate the new Hockenheim.
Big Nintendo fan throwing a stat at me that I'm going to have to go look up now. Have you noticed ever since 2014, Ferrari have been terrible in even numbered years? I love a stat. Everyone knows I love a stat, and you know I'm looking it up after this stream.
It'd be the opposite of Star Trek movies. Because there, it's all the even ones are good.
Orbs, who is the fans' favourite driver? Do you mean F1 fans in general, or do you mean the F1 Word community? Because if the F1 Word community want to pump in their favourite driver now, they can answer that for you. But I think probably Daniel Ricciardo if you're talking F1 fans, because of just sheer personality. He's hilarious.
Yeah, he's such a likeable guy and always smiling and messing around.
You know when you say something and instantly regret it. So we've got Hamilton, Alonso, Danny Rick, Hamilton, Kimi, Danny Rick all the way, Vettel, Ericsson, shut up, Raikkonen. Yeah, everybody apparently.
Yeah,
pretty much. A lot of Raikkonens. I like Raikkonen.
Yeah, I know I sound negative towards him, and it's not. I do really like Kimi. He's just. Last year was just so depressing.
Hugh Maldonado's coming through. Adam Smith says Magnussen. Another one, actually, to be fair, who I'm not maybe a fan of on the track, but away from the track, he is actually quite a personality and is actually quite funny. So, Alonso in his lawn chair. Joe Gallagher hates Raikkonen. Stig wants to know who the best looking F1 driver is, John T.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Hang on 1 second. Susie, who's the best looking F1 driver? She says, ooh, tricky. Come on, quick. Now. She says Jensen, but he's not around anymore.
A few actually on my comments for the Hulkenberg video say that Hulkenberg's the best looking driver in F1. So there you go. ST says he's the best looking. We've seen ST as a boy and a girl. So there you go. That's an image that he needs to share on social media for everybody, I think.
Oh, that's going on the stream next week.
Yeah. That's the thumbnail. Will Verstappen and Ricciardo fall over each other next season due to management and driver positions? It's a recipe for disaster, isn't it? Potentially.
Potentially, but I think they're both good enough racers to stop it from happening.
I think the biggest one to watch for in terms of that is Force India. That could be explosive. Yeah. That is, that could be massively explosive. If your notification isn't popping up, don't worry. The subscriber count isn't updating. The subscribers aren't coming through. Streamlabs and Streamlabs have given up on me. So, yes, hopefully they're going to iron this out because actually this Streamlabs software is so much better. So hopefully it's all going to get ironed out soon. So don't worry. If you're on Discord and you've subscribed tonight, let me know and I'll give you a shout out next week, or as soon as Streamlabs updates, I will give you a shout out at the start of next week's stream. So apologies for that because I do like to give everyone the credit for subscribing because it's awesome. And, you know, without getting too emotional, without you guys, I'm nothing and I've got nothing. So, you know. Poochie Head says, Jonty is the most good-looking person in the world.
Any of you even seen me?
It's a compliment. Take it as his men.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
Just as I say they're not updating, there you go. It's working now. Thank you, Mr. NKS97, for proving me wrong.
I spotted a question. What would you change on the physical cars for 2021? I've actually had an idea.
Oh.
As far as front wings go, because they're causing the problems for following. Maximum number of elements, but also a minimum surface area.
Yeah.
So they can't have loads of tiny little things. It's got to be big chunky ones like it used to be, which looked better as well.
Yeah, I think just cleaning up the surface aero in general will make a difference, but then at the same time that removes that window for innovation that I was talking about, doesn't it? But I think just, if nothing else, if they don't want to do that, just make the front of the car, the noses, look a little bit better. I don't like that little thumb at the front of some of them. I think the Mercedes, the front of that car looks ridiculous, the way it just suddenly drops into an even thinner part. I think I tell you what, go back to the Brawn, the front end of the Brawn. A simple front wing and that beautiful dipped nose. That'll do.
Yeah, I like that.
That'll do.
Yeah, but I like the 2013 Sauber nose, and you don't. No one else seems to either. Am I weird? It looks really good.
I was gonna say that's a debate for another stream, I think. To be honest, Jonty. Ground effect, says the Mighty Dash. Yeah, that'd be great to have back. Again, I don't see that happening. It's a bit like.
That's purely a safety thing, I think.
Yeah, I think things like the blown diffuser, you go back as far as, say, active suspension, it gives the teams with enough money too much of an advantage, doesn't it, potentially? So, imagine Red Bull.
Yeah, I mean, but with ground effect, I think the problem is that if they lose it, you suddenly got cars flying.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Look at Winkelhock, the older one.
Yes.
It's a horrific crash.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. Oh, that's going to bug me. I'm going to be looking that one up later.
Games Donovan, what change could improve F1 more than anything else? I think the engines. I think going back to a minimum of V8 if there are no restrictions and no barriers. I'd go back to at least a V8. I think the noise, aside from anything, will help. It'll make it cheaper. I don't know if people agree, but it'll make it cheaper because at the end of the day, you've got a disposable engine effectively, rather than having to make an engine last 755 races or whatever it's getting to. It's getting ridiculous. Actually, that's a question for you, John. Did you ever think they'll get to a point where it's going to be one engine per season?
I wouldn't be surprised. I honestly wouldn't. With some of the materials being developed now, it's possible, but the cost just goes up exponentially.
Ace Garcia makes a good point. Have every car have the same wheelbase. That would definitely even things out quite a bit, actually. I think closer racing is what we want, but I don't. People talk about equal chassis and equal engines. I don't want that because not necessarily the chassis, but certainly the engines. If you say to the teams it's equal engines, unless you are the team providing the engine for the rest of the field, we lose Ferrari, we lose Mercedes, we lose Renault, we lose Honda. You end up with GP1.
Yeah.
That's my concern. The equal chassis wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but just move it away from being a power formula. And I think we're going to have great racing. You look at when we got to the aero changes in 2009, you've got Brawn catapulted to the front of the field. You've got Red Bull up there, Toyota, much closer racing. As soon as it starts to move back to being power, it's the same. You're just going back to the 50s when you've got Mercedes, Ferrari. They're the ones that are going to dominate in that situation. So,
yeah, I mean, a few spec parts here and there could help. Like with engines, you could have not directly linked parts of it. Have all the radiators, water pumps, fuel pumps. Those kind of things could be spec parts, but you've still got the block, the head, the pistons, all the rest of it being developed by the teams.
They've talked about spec parts recently, haven't they? Maybe that we don't see. So, you know, same brakes for everybody, same suspension parts for everybody. That brings the cost down, of course, which enables teams to spend it elsewhere. The problem is with that, will the FIA let them spend it elsewhere? If you know what I mean. Is it going to be a case of we're saving this money, but you can't stick that there, you can't do this, you can't do that, take innovation, throw it away, and I don't know. Maybe we're just a bit old, Jonty. I don't know. We just want to see where's the next Adrian Newey going to come from? The next Ross Brawn, if they're not allowed to innovate.
Well, will they be needed?
Exactly. And that's sad. I think that's sad because that's important. They are as important as the drivers at the end of the day. Ace Garcia, should they extend the grid to 24 to 26 cars? The more cars, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd have 30 if they could.
Yeah. I wouldn't, with the rules they're discussing, the rule changes, I wouldn't have cars starting 3 and 4 abreast on the grid. I'd keep it 2 by 2.
Yeah. No, I'd have one race. Just one race, just to see what would happen.
Oh, yes, Marcus Ericsson's first ever win. That'll be...
Can you imagine that? Both Mercs, both Ferraris, 4 abreast at the start.
It's, again, kind of wandering off a little bit from the question, but it's once again the FIA addressing the issue they don't need to address and trying to cover up the bigger problem. The starting grid's been the way it has for so long, and it's been absolutely fine. Yes, it was. You watch back old footage, it was spectacular seeing 3 or 4 cars side by side running down to turn 1. That's great. How's that work in Monaco? Or Singapore? Exactly. So, you know, you go to Singapore, you've got 3 or 4 cars because that straight is wide enough going down into turn 1. Look at this year. Look at what happened in 2017. Could you imagine? Oh, yeah.
I am imagining. So I want it to happen even more.
It's one of those things where you sort of look at it and go, well, it's the shortest race in history. No cars finishing. Oh, dear. Anyway, let's not get back into Singapore 2017. That's a whole different video, and I'm not going back to that. So, 3 cars for 1 team, says Akko. That's something I actually, on paper, like the idea of, because it's an opportunity to get a young driver in. The problem is then your first 9 places in the field, provided there's no reliability issues, are already locked out. And that leaves 1 place for the rest of the field to fight over. Because you'll get 2 Mercedes, 2 Ferraris. 3 Mercedes, 3 Ferraris, 3 Red Bulls, and that's it. You've got Force India, Williams, Renault, and everybody else fighting over 1 point. So,
yeah, which brings in the argument of, should there be points throughout the grid?
No,
I wouldn't mind it. There'd need to be still a good bonus for being at the top,
yeah,
but
I'm not.
finishing would be enough.
I'm not a fan of the current point system. I think it reminds me of Fernando Alonso when he got all excited because he broke the points record. It's like, but for the majority of your career, instead of 10 points or 9 points for a win, you got 25. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I think top 10 is enough for me. If we start handing points out to people that finish last, I just don't think that's an achievement enough for a point.
Yeah, Howard Xiao saying, what about point for fastest lap?
Yes,
Points for pole.
I'm sighing a lot because I like that idea and it works in other formula. The only problem is, do we want a world championship won on a fastest lap? So, for example, if we get to Abu Dhabi, Lewis Hamilton, Vettel going for the title, Vettel's cruising to victory, he's going to win the title. Hamilton needs one extra point to do it. Pits with enough of a gap behind him, sticks on the hypersofts as the fastest lap, wins the championship. That's my only concern with that. But for the rest of the season, that opens up the likes of, as we've seen this year or last year, with McLaren strapping on the fastest tyre to Alonso, he gets a point. So
yeah,
it's weighing that up. The idea of a championship being won on a pole position or a fastest lap doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, I do get that.
Thanks for subscribing, Epic Waffle 97, the Epic Gamer 321. Welcome to the community. It's crazy. Get onto Discord if you can. They're absolutely bonkers over there. Understatement of the week. A lot of people saying bring back refueling. Interesting strategy, but
yeah, I wouldn't be against it just because it makes the races more interesting. But is it again too artificial because you've got cars with 10 litres of fuel and some cars with 70 litres of fuel?
Yeah. If they brought back refueling, so long as they got rid of that had to carry race fueling qualifying thing. But then I'm one of these people that thinks we should go back to one-shot qualifying. I love the double jeopardy of it.
The double jeopardy was good. I still prefer old school qualifying of there's an hour, everyone off you go, fastest guy at the
laps. End. Yeah.
No limit on laps, no limit on tyres, nothing. I'm talking back in the 80s, where we
just go for it.
You got an hour, see what you can do. Because then it was truly the fastest car. But that brings again the problem that the richest teams were able to buy the super sticky qualifying tyres and this, that, and the other.
Back to the 3 drivers per team. Milo Robson says third driver gets no points. So I guess you could throw a development driver in there and have like now then, hang on. Sean's formulating a plan. See what you think of this, everyone. What about, like they have in lower categories, a rookie championship? Or is that going to cause too much confusion? I'm just thinking the third seat has to go to a development driver. That brings young drivers into the sport. They don't score main championship points, but they would score points in there. So if they finish ahead of all the others, they get 25 points. If they finished 10th out of all of them, they get 1 point. That's going to give us more racing through the field, and it's just a thought. It might overcomplicate things, but...
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. It just brings in, does it make it dangerous along the lines of world endurance when you've got LMP1 cars going around with GT3 cars?
Yeah.
And a good 70 mile an hour difference on the straights.
Yeah, I know we have F2 and F3. I mean, in Formula 1 itself, the other issue then is you then get a race result and you're then having to work out how a driver finished 15th but actually scored a point in 10th. I suppose that's, if you throw in all the engine penalties as well, we're going to have very, very bad headaches by the end of a weekend if we do that. So maybe that's not a good idea, but just a thought. I still think there needs to be a way to get the younger drivers into the sport. Even if it's just you have to run a development driver in FP1 or something like that, or a separate race over the weekend, just a short feature race for 45 minutes of young drivers from each team. It's just, there's not enough seats in F1 for the amount of talent there is coming through, I guess is the point I'm making, and there is a lot. There is a lot.
Yeah, there really is. Well, like mentioned this to you on Discord. You look at the F2 next year. You've got Oliver Rowland, Narain Fukuzumi. You've got Lando Norris, Markelov, George Russell, Jack Aitken, all together in one series. It's going to be spectacular. I'm sure there was others.
And if you're at a loss at a weekend where there's no Formula One, I honestly urge you to go and watch Euro F3 if you haven't already. It's phenomenal. I say phenomenal. Phenomenal is probably too much of a word for it, but it is incredible. Just, you've got a grid full of young drivers, equal machinery, just wanting to be the best. It is brilliant racing. That is what motor racing is, and that's what F1 needs to get back to. I say back to, has it ever really been there? There's always been your top teams, hasn't there, and your bottom teams.
Yeah, but there's always been there was always proper racing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're missing, I think.
That's the point, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that. I keep going back to it. The end race 2 of GP3 from Monza this year was in 2017 was incredible. Everyone watching, as soon as you've joined us on Discord for all the announcements and whatnot, after that, go on YouTube, find it. You'll be mouth open the whole race.
Having a look at chat. I'll take a couple of more then. A couple more of your questions before we disappear. A good one from Tim C. Cambridge says, like football, the ref decides the outcome of all matches. So what about the penalties in F1? What is a better way of giving penalties? Added weight as an example is offered. They're a mess, aren't they, at the minute?
They are very much a mess.
I think we need to avoid situations like the US Grand Prix, Mexico a couple of years ago, where you've got drivers in the cool-down room that then get taken out the cool-down room. It makes everyone look completely stupid. That needs to be dealt with quicker. But what, the FIA aren't exactly full of common sense, are they? So
no, they need to make the rules firm. The rules are a mess, but they need to stick to them. That's the biggest problem, I think.
Yeah, consistency. We saw that in Austin, didn't we? There was no consistency that weekend. No one's going to convince me there was. There just was not any consistency at all. Look at the track limits thing. At the end of the day, if you leave the track, you get a penalty or your time's deleted or whatever. Nobody does it anymore. The problem with the penalty is you've got a race, you've got the stewards for every race, but then they're not the same stewards every Grand Prix. You need a team that goes to every single race. That is the only way you're going to get consistency. If you have, 5 stewards in Australia, then 5 completely different stewards in Bahrain, you're not going to get consistency. There needs to be a team of referees, to go back to the point, that goes to each Grand Prix. Nobody's interchanged, that make the decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. That would work. It's always the same viewpoint and attitude towards the rules, making the decisions.
It's finding 5 people that want to permanently be in the in the firing range, I guess, isn't it? I suppose, but there's enough out there in F1. There's plenty of egos, so
4 random guys and Martin Brundle with a gun. Since he's the only one who seems to get it right every time.
Ace Garcia, back to his point about more teams. More teams would allow more young drivers, absolutely. I mean, what about sort of taking that and turning that into a question? And what about junior teams? What about B teams, that sort of thing? Are B teams a good thing? I mean, look at Toro Rosso. They're officially not a B team because they're not allowed, but they are a B team. Sauber are effectively Ferrari's B team. Would it be a bad thing for teams to have a second, the big boys to have a B team?
No, I think it'd be a great thing. It would give a ladder for the extra drivers we can get into World Cup.
How would you police that then? Would you sort of say it has to be young development drivers and, I don't know, the engine must be a year-old engine so that it's not taking points away from, say, Haas, for example?
I think the simplest thing would be to have it that the staff must be separate.
Yeah.
Maybe have monitored channels of communication so they're not passing things by secret.
Yeah, we don't want Christian Horner running down to Franz Tost and say, "Get your car out of the way now, please. We need to overtake you." We want to see them actually overtaking, don't we?
Yeah, because I mean, we can't prove it, but we have feelings that things like that have happened before. When you see Haas cars not putting up much of a fight against Ferraris.
I would love to see Ferrari and Sauber's contract from the late 90s, early noughties, because there's a few races there where they were too easy to jump out of the way. I'd love to see that contract.
Yeah.
Maybe one day. Maybe somebody will write a book and we might get... Maybe Peter Sauber will do a book. There we go. And we might get some information. A couple more then, and then we're going to have to call it a day. We've been going a little bit longer than I was expecting to again. So just give you a second to get your questions in. Will Inter-Team radios coming to F1? We want driver-to-driver radios, don't we, Jonty?
Oh, yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Thoughts on Nelson Piquet's comments on Fernando Alonso, says Neil. What were the comments on Alonso?
Oh, I didn't see that.
What have I missed? I'm intrigued now. We'll come back to that in a sec then. Stig173, what will happen with Perez for the future?
He needs to clean up his attitude a little bit.
Yeah, we saw another side to him, didn't we?
Yeah, very much so. I've always liked Perez.
Yeah.
But 2017, he didn't show himself up to be that good at handling when his teammates on par.
So I'm just reading what Nelson Piquet said about Fernando Alonso now. I'm properly interested by that one. Yeah, I think Perez... I was quite a Perez fan up to this season, I'll be honest. I thought he should have got that Ferrari seat over Raikkonen, but then I still think he's possibly, with the way he's been around Esteban Ocon, possibly inadvertently talked himself out of that Ferrari seat now.
Yeah, very much so. I wouldn't be surprised if, on the surface it's unofficial, but I think there will have been conversations in Force India making Ocon a lead driver.
The Nobsel wants to know opinions on the qualifying system tried at the beginning of the 2016 season. An absolute farce. Easy as that. And crap and impossible to follow. Even the teams didn't get it.
Yeah, it would have worked if they kept it to the point of you can finish the lap you're on. But they just had it as a strict time cut-off. So if you were 1 foot from the finish line when the timer went off, lap didn't count. That was the problem. And it meant that, cars were having to go out 3 minutes before the timer was up to get a lap in. And then that was just never going to happen.
So PK said Alonso is impossible to work with, makes bad career moves and can destroy morale in teams, apparently. And apparently the quote is always a mess wherever he is. He doesn't make the best career choices. He's proven that. Morale-wise, go back to 2007. I'd agree with that statement. I think he did. But I also have to say Fernando Alonso is a completely different personality to what he was a decade ago.
Yeah, and even though he did a lot of complaining again 2017, I think he actually raised the morale at McLaren by... It got to a point where it was just laugh about it instead of going crazy about it. And I think he kept the McLaren team happier by keeping it funny.
Chris Smith, I think echoes what we've said on streams in the past. I know a lot of people who try to blame Ocon for their differences, but to me it was obvious that Checo panicked when his teammate was as quick as he was. He hit himself, quite frankly, when Ocon turned up, scared him into a corner, and that's why he made the decisions he made.
Yeah, that was Canada. Canada was the first incident where he just refused to allow him through, costing the team a podium, just because it was the other guy.
I'm going to try and pronounce his name. Thank you to Blafard for your subscription. Great to have you with us. We're getting closer to that 10k. That's getting ridiculous. Have separate engines for qualifying, says Nation Gurung. That's going back to the old days, isn't it?
Yeah, I used to do that one.
T-cars as well. Bring back T-cars.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Well, I wouldn't mind there being a spare car.
We'll look at those in the opening rounds that we've had over the recent years who haven't started because of mechanical issues. Straight back to the pits, jump in the T-car, and you got a full grid again.
Yeah.
Reverse grid order for the last race. No.
Oh, that'd be hilarious, but
it'd be brilliant, but it'd be too artificial, and then you'd only be a step away from double points again. Oh, could you imagine the uproar if Nico Rosberg? I would the channel want around them, but I suppose I ought to say it now. The uproar if Nico Rosberg had won the title in 2014, having got double points in Abu Dhabi. God, it's not worth thinking about, is it?
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll finish on this one, but it is a really good one to finish on. It's from George Birch. Your dream driver pairing. Do you want that one first, John T? We'll go with current grid rather than all time, because that's just...
Oh, current grid?
Yeah.
I think Red Bull have got it, to be honest. Purely for the entertainment of the racing, Ricciardo and Verstappen. If we're on about pure speed and wins and whatnot, then it would have to be Alonso and Verstappen.
See, Ace Garcia says what I was thinking. Vettel and Hamilton. The problem is, I think I want to see that because I want that argument answered once and for all. If they're in identical cars, we know, and everyone will just stop it then. Because this, and I'm going to say it, and I'm going to try not to get ranty, because this whole Vettel fanboy, Vettel hate, Hamilton fanboy, Hamilton hate thing is beyond a joke now. It really is. They're both four-time world champions. They're both fantastic drivers. They will both, not now, but they will both go down as two of the greatest of all time. Not the two greatest, but two of the greatest of all time. And we need to just stop it a little bit, to be honest. So I'd love to see that. But I'd agree with Ricciardo and Verstappen. But I would love to see Alonso and Hamilton go toe-to-toe as well in the same car again. To settle that argument.
Yeah, you see, my dream is that Renault come with a brilliant engine, so that Red Bull are right up there scrapping, and that Ricciardo and Verstappen keep a good camaraderie, and it's like a pair of hawks hunting down the falcons.
Yeah,
working together to beat the bigger boys. It would be awesome.
Let's see if there's one more. Really, come on, give us an awesome question to finish on, guys. Yes, I said guys. That's how excited I am. One last one. I'm just waiting. There'll be one. There will be one. That was a good one, but just waiting. A few comments off. What's your opinion on Formula E then while we're waiting for that to come through? Are you trying to get into it or just really not that bothered?
I've tried. I genuinely have tried, but it's... I can even get past the noise. I think the biggest problem is the tracks. Every track is is basically cones in a car park.
Yeah. I think
a couple of them actually are just laid out in a car park.
It's one of those, once they've got these engines, if you like, these power units to last a full race, and maybe when we can get them around the likes of I don't know, Monza. Maybe then. I do keep an eye on it. I try and get into it, but I think I want to see him on proper tracks, not street circuits. But Matthew Tomlinson says, FE will be great in 5 years. It probably will, but I think the jury's still a little bit out on it. It's not the worst series of motor racing I've ever seen. A1 was pretty diabolical. If we're going back a little bit.
Yeah, but if you ever watched much of it, I think the problem with A1 was that they all realised they were in a cheap, easy-to-replace car, so they kind of didn't care who they hit. It was a bit stock car-y. Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, go on then.
A team that used to be in the sport that you would have back on the grid.
Oh, what do you think about that? Hello, Drew Reese. Thanks for the subscription. Welcome to the team. Quite a few subscribers tonight, actually, but yeah.
I'd like Toyota back.
I'd agree with racing and say Tyrrell. Welcome to the team, Fernandino Alonzini. That's an awesome name.
That's
Tyrrell.
I like that.
Jordan as well. Chaz has just said Jordan. That's another one. If nothing else, as long as it's Jordan as we remember Jordan. Eddie Jordan in charge, a crackers team that punch well above their weight. I'd love that.
Yeah.
A few saying Toyota would be good, especially with their links, of course, to LMP1 as well. So they're still around, aren't they? So it's possible.
Yeah, they've got the tech.
Yeah, Benetton, that is a name, actually, isn't it, to be fair? McLaren, Mercedes, yeah. Well, if they'd have made their decision a bit quicker in 2017, they might have ended up with a Mercedes engine. So, but I think we'll leave it there because we could do this all night. Some good questions coming through now. So, as ever, John T, thank you very much for joining us for this one, and I'm sure we'll do it again very, very soon.
Yep, getting closer and closer to lights out.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait. It's too long. I can't stand this winter. It's too long, but it'll be here soon. And of course, aside from the races, the cars start launching from at the minute, the 22nd. But hopefully, Red Bull will come in a little bit earlier and do an early launch again. So, fingers crossed from that.
Yep.
I'll talk to you in a bit then, John T. Thank you again.
Yep. See you later, guys.
Right then, thank you again to John T. I am going to drop into Discord announcements VC after the stream, just because I've got a couple of things I want to address and a couple of questions I want to put to you for the future of the channel. So you're going to have your say tonight. So if you can get along to that, that'd be absolutely awesome. If all of the mods could now spam a Discord link for anyone that hasn't had it through the stream, that would be absolutely great. I will say, actually, while they're doing that, massive thank you to everybody who's watching tonight. I think we nearly hit 200 if we didn't go over 200 again, and it's incredible. 162 of you still watching now, so thank you so much. That is awesome, and the channel's growing so well. Hopefully we'll hit that 10k very, very soon. I'm going to be back on Tuesday with another video unless some massive news breaks on Monday, which it's unlikely now. We've kind of got all the news we're going to get now. When I said spam, by the way, I didn't mean take the mickey with it, but okay, yeah. So I will be back on Tuesday with another video for you. If you've got any questions, by the way, when this video goes up, if you're listening to this now, pop your question in the comments below. I will try and answer as many as I can through January. If I keep getting questions, because I've got tons of them, I will stretch it into February to try and get as many of your questions answered as possible, because there are some brilliant ones. Some absolutely fantastic ones. Some that I'm literally struggling with, that I'm desperate to make a video on, but I actually really, really struggling to do. So do pop them in the comments below in this video, or send it to me on Discord, on Twitter, on Facebook. Links to all of those are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.